I work as a night security guard at a small office building on the edge of town. It's not a high-profile place, just a few companies renting floors and leaving by evening. My job is simple: sit in the control room, watch cameras, and do hourly rounds. Most nights are painfully quiet, and nothing ever really happens. After a while, you get used to the silence and stop expecting anything unusual. The cameras become background noise, just flickering screens you barely notice. But one night, something small caught my attention, and it didn't feel right. And looking back now, I really wish I had ignored it. It happened around 1:15 a.m. when I was checking the camera feeds. I noticed movement on the third floor, which was already locked hours ago. At first, I thought it might be cleaning staff finishing a late work, but the way the figure moved didn't look normal at all. It was slow, uneven, almost like someone dragging their feet. I leaned closer to the screen, trying to get a better look at it. The lights in the hallway were dim, making everything harder to see. But one thing was clear: someone was definitely up there. I kept watching as the figure moved across the hallway slowly. Every few steps, it would stop completely, then continue again. It didn't look like someone working or searching for something. It felt more like someone wandering without purpose. That's when I checked the access logs beside the monitor. There were no entries for the third floor since closing time, no card swipes, no manual unlocks, nothing at all. And that's when I started to feel something wasn't right. I grabbed my radio and tried calling the other guard on duty. Usually he responds instantly, even if he's half asleep. But this time there was nothing except static noise. I tried again, a little louder, but still no response came back. Then I called his phone, hoping maybe the radio wasn't working. It rang for a few seconds before going straight to voicemail. That's when the situation stopped feeling normal completely. Because now, I knew I was alone. I had two choices at that moment: ignore it or go check myself. And for some reason, I chose to go upstairs. I told myself it was probably just a mistake or glitch. Maybe someone forgot to sign out properly or something like that. But deep down, I already felt that something was off. The kind of feeling you can't explain, but you can't ignore either. Still, I grabbed the keys and headed toward the elevator, trying to act normal, even though I didn't feel it. The elevator ride felt longer than usual that night. There was a low humming sound that seemed louder than before. I stood there watching the floor numbers slowly increase. When it finally stopped, the doors opened with a soft sound. The third floor hallway was dim, just like on the camera. The lights flickered slightly as I stepped out. I paused for a second, listening carefully for anything. But there was nothing. Just silence. I started walking down the hallway slowly, following the same path. My footsteps echoed softly, making the place feel even emptier. I looked around, checking every corner and doorway carefully. Everything seemed normal at first glance, nothing out of place. But then I noticed one office door slightly open. That immediately caught my attention, because I clearly remembered locking that door earlier. And I don't forget things like that. I pushed the door open gently and looked inside. The room was dark with only faint light coming from the hallway. At first, I didn't see anything unusual inside, but then I heard a faint sound from deeper in the room. It was slow, like something dragging across the floor. I stood there frozen, trying to figure out what it was, and then suddenly, the sound stopped. like whatever it was knew I was there. I stepped back out into the hallway almost immediately. My heart was beating faster now, and I couldn't calm it down. I pulled out my phone and opened the camera feed again. I just wanted to confirm what I had seen earlier. But what I saw this time made everything worse. The camera was showing me standing in that hallway. But behind me, just a few steps away, there was someone standing there. I turned around instantly, but there was nothing behind me. The hallway was completely empty, just like before. I looked back at my phone, hoping it was just a glitch. But the figure was still there on the screen, standing directly behind me, completely still. I could feel my hand starting to shake at that point. Then slowly, it raised its arm and pointed directly at me. That's when my radio suddenly crackled loudly. The sound made me jump, almost dropping it. A voice came through, but it wasn't my coworker. It sounded distorted, like it was breaking apart. For a second, I couldn't understand what it said. Then it repeated itself more clearly. "You're not supposed to see that." And then the signal cut off again. I looked back at my phone screen one last time. The figure was now much closer than before. Close enough that I could almost see its face. But it didn't look right. Something was wrong. It was pale, blurred, like it wasn't fully there. I didn't wait to understand anything further. I dropped my phone and started running immediately, straight toward the elevator without looking back. I got inside the elevator and pressed the ground floor button repeatedly. It felt like it was taking forever to close the doors. For a second, I thought something would stop them, but they finally shut and the elevator started moving. I stood there breathing heavily, trying to calm down. When I reached the ground floor, I ran straight outside. I didn't stop until I reached the parking area. And even then, I didn't feel safe. The next morning, I quit the job without giving any details. They asked me what happened, but I just said personal reasons. Later, I found out my coworker never showed up that night. In fact, he had called in sick earlier that evening, so I was never supposed to have a partner that shift. That part still doesn't sit right with me. But what really stayed with me was something else. Something I found out a few days later. The building manager called me and asked about that night. He specifically asked if I checked the third-floor cameras. I told him yes, thinking they already knew everything. There was a long pause before he responded again. His voice sounded serious, almost nervous. Then he said something I still think about sometimes. The third-floor cameras haven't worked in 2 years. And after that, I never asked anything again.